Coming up on our Finding Better podcast, the brain thinks, but the heart knows. Whoa. Dr. Jennifer Cory is here to talk about how the heart actually has its own brain. And this has been confirmed by places like MIT, UCLA, and Harvard. And she's going to share how focusing on yourself and your heart energy and doing some internal exercises can actually reduce things like chronic stress and depression by 50%, and how a better you internally becomes a better you externally. And I've been saying forever that a better you lifts the world. And boom, it's true. It's one of the most mind-blowing conversations I've ever had, not only on finding better, but actually making better. So please share this. Please subscribe. Here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and this is our safe place where we just want to help you by sharing real life experiences on things where we've been there and done that and finding better in our own lives, both good and bad, that you can apply to your own life. This is not about opinions. It's not about theories. It's not about academics. So it's really, really cool. It's all about personal experiences. And I'm a person who believes that there are no accidents and that the universe brought us all together for a reason. So I am really happy you're here with us, especially today, because today we're going to talk about you and we're going to talk about helping you on your journey towards a life of greater joy, greater harmony, and greater freedom. I mean, who doesn't want those things, right? And my guest today is Dr. Jennifer Cory. And Jennifer is a licensed clinical psychologist based here in Encinitas, California, beautiful Encinitas, California. And she's spent over 30 years focused on empowering folks like you and me to break free from past limiting beliefs and behaviors that no longer serve us, right? And and the bottom line is to create a higher and a better version of yourself. So, Jen, I am honored to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
I am too. I am too. And so let's just get right into it. Let's talk about your story. You talked about personal experiences of overcoming health issues and losing yourself in the stress of life and all the doing of life. Yeah, share your story.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Dakota and then I was went to school in Colorado State and I ski bummed for a while and then I made my way to San Diego and I decided I wanted to go back to school and I got my PhD and while I was in school, I really feel like I really resonated with everything I was learning and it was very exciting, very passionate about me and little did I know that it was going to end up being you know, just so much part of my life and what was going to help me become a better version of myself, right? So I I in the like probably 2020 I started having a lot of health issues and I was in and out of the ER. I can't even count how many times it seemed
Oh
like on a
no.
weekly basis. Yeah, and it was always like, well, testing my heart, testing this, but nothing was really ever a complete, black and white diagnosis. And what I came to realize was that I believe my body was just responding to a lifetime of chronic stress. And I had gone. I was a mother that I had my first child when I was 36, and I went through a divorce, and then I had a child though before I had my got divorced, and then the divorce was pretty
Oh.
stressful. And then, and when I was 41, I surprisingly got pregnant again, and it was amazing. I was so grateful to be pregnant with my second husband.
Hmm.
However, the long-term stress and a lot of things that had happened, I had a really traumatic birth, and I almost died. I hemorrhaged, and it was a very traumatic experience. And so I think that me being the age I had and been living in a long-term chronic stress, I think that it just my body was working really hard to try to heal from that trauma, and I had lost a lot of blood, and then I just kind of jumped back into life, and now I had two young kids, and I was running my own practice, and before you knew it, I just was collapsed on the couch, and I couldn't move, I couldn't really do anything. I had chronic fatigue. My heart was always jumping out of my chest. I was always having chest pressure. I couldn't tell if it was a heart attack. So, long story short, I was trying everything. I was trying Western medicine, and they didn't have any answers for me. And I'm very, very in tune with functional medicine and
Uh-huh.
complementary medicine. It's a very big world I walk in, and I have lots of friends, and they were so supportive and kind and helping me with all the knowledge they had. And I was going from provider to provider, and I was going up to the Bay Area, and I was just on a mission to figure out what was going on with me, and I was not getting any clear answers. And then finally, my mom, of all people, was telling my story to a friend back home. We have a lake house in Iowa, and she said, your daughter's story sounds very similar to mine, and she should try a program called neurodynamic retraining, which is basically using neuroplasticity and through your own inner work, finding ways to um, desensitize your body to stressors in your life. And within 3 days, my chronic fatigue was gone. And then it's
Three
changed.
days.
3 days, my chronic fatigue was gone, but then the rest of it was it was like a peeling away the layer of the onion.
Right,
They said
right,
I had
right, right,
pericarditis. I had
right.
they said I had asthma. I had like a list of diagnoses, and so that started my journey. But what it did is it also moved my practice into this whole new trajectory of really personal empowerment, because we underestimate the power of our mind. We underestimate the healing power of our body. And for me, realizing that our thoughts are one of the most powerful tools that we have that can serve us or that can be our
Right.
demise. Um,
Right,
and,
right,
and
right. It's a double-edged sword for
yeah,
sure.
it's like it can be our friend or our foe.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then through that, I
So can,
started
can I
working.
can I ask you a
Yeah, yeah,
quick
yeah,
quick
yeah,
question?
yeah.
So, um, it sounded like even early on, you were dealing with chronic stress.
Yes.
Now, was that can you tell us about yeah, because our world, I mean, first world is very, very stressful for a lot of people in a lot of ways, and we create our own stress. I
Yeah.
know I do, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's almost so bad that it's like, well, show me a person who doesn't suffer from chronic stress, right? Especially in the fast world that we live in. So can you kind of share what your stress was about and how it kind of manifested itself in your life?
I mean, I think you nailed you nailed it when you said that we all live in a high state of chronic stress, and we don't even realize it because we
Right.
become desensitized to it. So,
I love that word, by the way. I love that word. We just live in it, so it just becomes white noise, right? And
yeah.
that's what you mean by desensitized,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. We just live
Yeah,
in our life is a very fast-paced, externally focused um, pattern. And
right.
we're waking, like if you really think about it, like you wake up in the morning and the first thing your body does is it remembers, like, okay, what do I need to attend to? And so I'm not trying to sidebar, but part of the practice I even do is when I wake up, I become aware of what state am I in? Because if I feel my body like going, okay, let's go, I will not leave my bed until I
Oh.
calm myself down and say, I'm not going to enter into my day in that state.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to the idea of you wake up and go, okay, let's go, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
you just jump out of bed and let's get on with it, right?
Right, right.
And yeah,
So the chronic stress for me was, finishing school, getting my license, then getting married, then having a child. It's really kind of the story of everybody. My stress isn't like a real unique story. It's the story of life. And
yeah.
and
Life in
it's
the
the
West,
story of
yeah.
being a mom, and it's the story of, running your own practice. And wanting to take care of people at the same time, being passionate about, humanity and wanting to serve humanity, and then realizing like your tank's empty, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And and unfortunately, because we are not really educated on like what stress is or what it looks like, or we're all living in it, like we're, like a fish swimming in the ocean, just in the middle of it, not knowing it. Um,
exactly.
you don't realize it until your body starts to like get your attention.
Yeah. And sometimes that's when your body starts to break down.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. Yeah.
when I was early in my career, this was in 1987. I was working for IBM, and and I had three projects going on, three major projects, each of which required a full-time project manager. But I was managing all three, and this went on for 9 months, maybe 10. And on Christmas Eve that year, I landed in the hospital. And because Christmas Eve, my last project completed. And it was amazing. It was like my body said, all right, now it's time to pay up. And I landed up in the hospital. And the doctor said to my wife on Christmas Eve, he said, we don't know what your husband has. It can be anything from acute pneumonia to Legionnaire's disease. We're going to put him into a quarantine. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and one of the things that you said that just kind of made my brain pop is that we are so externally focused, right? We're focused outside of ourselves. We're focused on the world. We're focused on our job. We're focused on serving other people. We're focused and and I didn't realize that until you just said it. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm 63 years old and I didn't realize that.
Right.
And so that just kind of made my mind go boom, right? And it sounds like that was your realization when you decided to shift your practice, right?
Yeah.
To shift from the external and helping people. I mean, is that right? And can you talk about that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that it's a balance, right? Because in order to function in
Totally.
our life, we have to have our resources and energy outward, but we are not really educated or trained or have the awareness to really know how important it is to be internally focused.
Right.
And that if we take the time and the energy to put our focus and attention within ourself, the rest of our outside world goes well because it gets a better version of us. We are our, but it's like we've all been conditioned to feel like that's selfish, that I'm supposed to put other people
Right.
first.
Right. Right.
And so that is like the number one thing in my practice that is the biggest like challenge to work through for people is everyone has a very sophisticated story as to why they need to be out here, 99% of the time, and they don't have time to be in here,
Right.
right?
They don't have the time.
They don't have the time. They don't,
Right.
it's not a priority. And
Exactly.
it's not, and it's not, it's the way we've been conditioned to believe it's not a priority. And
Right.
not to mention, it's, we've been conditioned to believe it's not a priority. We don't even know we don't know how to do it. So people
Exactly.
sit down and they might say, okay, I'm going to meditate or I'm going to take time for myself. And then all of a sudden, because the body has been conditioned and trained to be in motion all the time, and you're saying, okay, I know I treat you in this state of constant motion 98% of the time or 98%. So now we're going to sit. The body's like, oh no, we go. This is what we do. We go, we produce, we take
Right.
things off our
Right.
list, we get things done. And that's the only way I get satisfaction is making sure I'm accomplishing and doing and going. And all
Yes.
and all these people need my attention. And now with, we all have about a million emails that need to be responded to. You know what I mean? There's too much external pull. And so when we sit and we say, okay, this is good for me, I'm going to do it, the body just, it rejects it because we've trained it to be here. So
Right.
part of it's meditation or just even awareness. And, there's been a big, huge mindfulness-based stress reduction movement for years now.
Right.
But it's about there's all these techniques and tools on how do we stop our body and come within, because within is truly when we are connected with our self that really knows. Like they say the heart knows, the brain thinks, but the heart knows. But we can't hear our heart because our head is always like managing everything that's out here.
Okay, wait. You just said something that you said the brain thinks, the heart knows.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It means that the heart is our it's like it's our true north, people say.
Mhm.
It's our guidance system. It's our all-knowing.
Right,
It's the I mean like, we had talked about how the heart has its own brain. Like they now know that the heart has a mini brain with its own certain amount of neurotransmitters. And so the heart is constantly in a state of communication with our brain. And so but we have not been trained to take the time to say, what is this brain trying to tell me? Because this
right,
brain is what's really tuned into our true nature, our true inner self, our intuition, for some people it would be their soul, their higher knowingness. But we are so busy out here that we don't take the time to be quiet and say, what is my heart saying in this situation? Right?
right, right.
It's
Totally.
a very common, it's so common with my patients. They come in and they have all, a list of all these problems and all these stories and all these things. And so everything resides up here in the brain.
Right,
It's all in a thought process, but I can't tell you how often I say, okay, let's drop into the heart. And people are just like, what do you mean? And like, you can think about your heart, but that's not the same. You don't think about your heart. You have to actually put your awareness and attention and have an experience with your heart.
right. It wasn't until my daughter had mentioned this idea of intelligence of the heart. I mean, again, been around for 63 years and I never heard of that. And so, and I don't think I'm the only guy out there or only person out there who hasn't heard about this, right? And yet it is, I've always believed, even throughout my career and even while in technology and all my speaking that I did and all these things, I had an overlying theme that it's all about love. It's all about heart. And
Mhm.
we live in a world that is so conditioned about thinking that we forget to follow our heart. And you're the first person, right, who's kind of helped me make that step to, maybe there's really something there and it's just not a feeling, right?
Mhm.
But it sounds like there really is something there.
Well, there is, and the Heart Math Institute that's up in Santa Cruz has been studying the frequency, the energy, the anatomy of the heart for 40 years. And so they have a whole program that's called the Heart Math. It's called Heart Math, and basically it teaches you how to tune into your heart and what they call put your heart into a state of heart coherence. And they use it by basically biofeedback. They measure heart rate variability. And what they have learned through all of their research is that we, with our focus and attention, with their they have a very, very simple process of basically putting your attention on your heart and putting your hand on your heart so your awareness goes there, and then breathing like you feel like you're breathing in and out of your heart, and you do it at a very slow pace. And when you do it with their device, again, it's biofeedback. It starts to tell you if you're in a state of heart coherence or you're in the middle range or you're in the low range, so that you can actually start to learn what it feels like to actually be in your heart in a state of heart coherence. And what the research shows is that when we work and get our heart into a state of heart coherence and we create a formal practice so that we've built that muscle that knows how to have that experience,
Right.
the heart will send a message to the basal ganglia of the brain that, hey, we're safe, all is well, like we're good. And it can reset trauma, it can reset stress and anxiety. It's very powerful, and there's science that's backing it. It's not a theory, it's a reality. you know.
And this is something it's called the heart math or the heart
Yeah,
math.
heart, no, heart math, like MATH.
MATH. And
Yeah.
this is at University of California, Santa Cruz.
I don't think it's with the university, but their facility is up
Oh,
in
their
Santa Cruz.
facility is in Santa
Yeah,
Cruz.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
But they've been conducting a lot of research over the years, and so um, they have gone into schools. They've taught children how to use their technique. I mean, it's very powerful.
That's
Um,
fascinating. You know, um I mean, is this something that people can learn? And I know you're not here selling that program,
oh no,
right? But
yeah,
I mean, is that something that people can go online and
yeah,
look up Google
yeah.
Heart Math and Heart Math Santa Cruz and learn
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, they have a website and their website's really very, very helpful. They have a lot of like videos and teaching you how to techniques and all these resources. And they're really, you talk about like the power of the heart and love, and that's their mission, really. They're, they don't, it's not like they're out there trying to make a lot of money off it. They just
Right.
have a very important methodology and a technique and really technology that can teach people how to have this tool to really help you in your life. And one of the things they look at is that when we're talking about energy and emotions,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you've heard that like emotion, energy and motion is emotions, right?
Yep.
And that when we're going through life, we either have emotions that are at renewal or depleting. So
Right.
when I have an emotional state of joy and happiness and inspiration, that's an energy renewal state, and that actually has its own pharmacology in my body. And so whenever I have a thought and a feeling, it produces a specific type of pharmacology in my body. So when we are living in high states of stress and I'm in fear, worry, or like lack, I'm not getting enough done, whatever it might be, those are energy depleting emotions. And then those turn on the pharmacology of stress, which is like cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine.
Oy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm going, that's really good to know, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Shouldn't we know that?
it's good to know. Yeah, and so it's like, wow. The thing that comes to my mind is, you use the term building the muscle,
Yeah.
right? Building that muscle, building that connection between the brain and the heart. And as you were talking earlier, I was thinking about that exact example of how a muscle unused atrophies, right? And so we've lived through an entire life of not using that muscle, using that brain intelligence, right?
Yes.
And so I was encouraged, I was encouraged, but I want to confirm that even though we live in a society where some of us have never consciously worked on that muscle, right?
No.
That it is not atrophied so much to the point of non-recovery, but that we can work on it and build
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. And
right?
and the building of the muscle is the way I try to help people understand like meditation, heart math practice. Because what I try to remind people is that if you wanted to develop biceps, let's say, you go to the gym
Hmm.
and you lift your weight for 3 days and you say, "Oh, there's no muscle there. It must not be working." You want to do that because there's a knowingness that if I know that I have to be consistent, I have to be consistent and repeat it and show up every single day or every other day or whatever it is to build that muscle for it to strengthen.
And you have to be committed,
Yeah, you have
right?
to be
And
committed, but
you
it
have to
takes
commit
time.
yourself.
Like, it takes time. That's
Right,
why
right,
if you lift for 3 days, you're not going to think that there should be a muscle there because there's a knowingness inside you that it takes time for it to develop, but you trust that it's growing and developing. So
right,
you trust that I'm doing the right thing, even though there's no evidence that it's actually active because right? There's a knowing.
right,
And that's the same thing with heart math and all forms of meditation. What's important to understand is that when you are taking a time in, you're taking time for yourself and you're saying, I'm going to sit and I'm going to I want to grow this muscle because if I grow this muscle within myself, the research shows that I will decrease my stress. I will increase my resiliency to life. I can actually up the research and science now shows, thanks to Dr. Joe Dispenza, that we can upregulate genes and downregulate genes by our stress, by the way we think, by the way we feel. And so if I take that time in, and I commit to a formal practice, that's like me committing to going to the gym to work out a muscle.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just makes so much sense because
Yeah.
one of the things that you mentioned is meditation, right?
Yeah.
It is so hard to meditate when you try it for the first time.
Oh,
And right?
everybody.
And
Yeah.
it's like, well, just take 5 minutes and just sit and just be at peace. I can't sit, what I can now, but when I first started, I couldn't sit at peace for 15 seconds. And I literally gave myself a 30 second, because you just got so much of this stuff going on in your head, right? And everything that you have to do. And again, everything is externally focused. And so I love how you suggest it from the standpoint, the way that I'm taking this is, I've been spending 100% of my energy consciously externally.
Yes.
What if I take 1% of it and just 1% of it and focus on me, right? And
Yeah.
focus internally. And gee, what difference would that make? I think it would be pretty huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that what I try to help people understand about meditation, how you're working a muscle, is that there's not one person I think that could actually say, with the first time I sat down to meditate, it was awesome. You know, like
Okay, good.
nobody's going to
Thank
say
you.
that.
Yeah.
No one's going to say it. So when we talk about meditation in my practice and they tell me, well, I can't do it and I've tried before, and I'm like, well, yep, it says, 100% of the population probably, right? That's tried it. So I explained to them that when we're learning to be still and just sit within and be quiet to hear our heart brain, by the way, um, whenever our mind wanders, like it wanders to, oh, I got to go to the grocery store, or I need to return this
Right.
email, or
Right.
that person was such a jerk to me when I was driving here, whatever it is, right?
Right.
Whenever our mind wanders and we have a target, like if it's our target's our breath, or if our target's like, I want to focus on the quietness in the room, or if you're doing a guided meditation or whatever it is, whenever you know what your target is, when your mind wanders and you notice it's gone somewhere, you just bring it back. And Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who started mindfulness-based stress reduction, he says, like, with equanimity, with kindness, with compassion, not like with frustration, you know? An annoyance, like, I can't, and we all have, but part of the overcoming ourselves is understanding we go through frustration, we go through irritation, we go through annoyance, whatever it is when we're trying to get ourselves to do something that we've not done before.
Hmm.
So whenever our mind wanders and we bring it back, that's when we're lifting the weight to build the muscle.
Ooh.
So, yeah, so whenever I'm meditating and my mind's going a million miles a minute because let's say I had a much more stressful week than an average
Uh-huh.
week, I just say to myself, oh, I'm lifting some heavier weights today. Instead of my 10 pounder, I got my 50 pounder. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because the brain is neuroplastic. And so what we put our attention on is what grows. And so I know from neuroscience that if I am working with my intention, every time my mind wanders and I'm bringing it back to target, I'm bringing it back to target. I'm working out the muscle and the parts of my brain that allow me to live in the present moment, that allow me to connect with my, inner guidance system of my heart, that I can hear my true knowingness louder than the noise that's spinning around me. And then I also know that if I continue to do that, my body is going to respond with, positive pharmacology. It's going to increase my immune system. It's going to help me upregulate the genes I don't want and downregulate the genes I do want. But most of all, I know for 100% from my own personal experience that when I leave my meditation state, the rest of the world, my family, my patients, they get a better version of me.
That is amazing. And
And
if
I know
that isn't,
that from a fact. Yeah.
yeah, and if that isn't motivation and a little bit of inspiration, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Because you know, and it all comes back. You give the world a better version of yourself. It just works. The world
Yeah.
seems to work better that way. Now, I want to talk about a couple of just a couple of real quick things because you know, a lot of people part. I want to talk about how what you've been mentioning differs, or maybe it's the same as the power of positive thinking, because you know
Mhm.
a lot of people think, you know, that's just a bunch of hogwash. But you know, some of the things that you're saying, I mean, you're training yourself, you're training your heart and your mind, and part of that sounds like it is that positive thinking is part of it.
Yeah, because, well, I think what's really important to touch on here, because I feel like this is something that gets missed a lot, is that
Okay.
our thoughts and our emotions do a dance. So, our thoughts, we do not have a thought that does not generate some form of emotion in our body,
Right.
right? And the way we think and the way we feel creates a behavior, right?
Yeah.
And so every behavior that we do has a pattern of thought and feelings that is associated with it. And so, where I feel a lot of times when people are using affirmations, and some people will be like, oh, it didn't work, or it didn't make me feel different, right? Or it didn't change my behavior,
Right.
right? Whatever it might be, is because what's really important when we're using affirmations is we have to really also focus on the elevated emotion that we want that thought to generate, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so in the world of neuroplasticity, okay, so every single behavior or thought or everything in my office I'm looking at right now, it all has a very sophisticated neural map that's associated with it so that I can look at it and know what it does. I can make an association and be comfortable with my understanding of what that is. And we
Hmm.
have that for everything, people, places, things, everything. So if I have a behavior that I no longer want, that behavior has a set of thoughts and feelings that are attached to it. So if I want to make change in my life, I have to become very aware of the thoughts and the emotions that I'm repeating over and over again in that pattern, because that right there
Interesting.
has its own sophisticated neural map. And with the power of our mind and intention, our frontal lobes are our CEO. They're the manager of where we direct our attention.
Uh-huh.
Because wherever we put our attention is where our energy goes. So if I get hungry, if I have a thought, I'm hungry, and then I think about the kitchen and I take myself to the kitchen, right?
Right.
So when we're doing behavioral changes, which is why a lot of people do affirmations. That's why I'm kind of bringing this in, is because
Sure.
affirmations are about people wanting a different outcome, right? They want to feel different. They want to behave different. They
Right.
want a different experience, right?
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is it's not the whole package if you're just thinking about it from the thoughts. You have to say to yourself, if I have well, we're talking about love, right? Like, so if I am saying I am lovable, or I am worthy of unlimited love, or whatever it is, or I want to have an experience of just being, connected to people that love and support me. I
Hmm.
don't just say, like, I'm surrounded by love, I'm surrounded by love, I'm surrounded
Right.
by love,
Right.
right? We have to have an experience of dropping into our heart and saying, if I was surrounded by love, and I was connected to all the people that love me, what would that experience be? What would be the emotions that are connected to that? Joy, peace, calm, safety, connection. Those are all experiences we have. But what I notice in my practice is people can think of the word connection, they can think of the word safety. But what is the experience of that? That is
Oh,
the emotion. See?
right. Right.
And how do we elevate that emotion? We can elevate that. See, this is where our imagination is our friend or our foe, because we have no problem imagining a lot of doomsday events around us, right?
Right. Right.
And
Totally.
catastrophic thinking, right?
Totally.
But we can also use it, and we just naturally default to do it. And so we're doing it all the time, and we don't realize that we're like stuck in that trap.
Yeah, that's kind of me a lot.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all of
for
us. It's
sure.
all of
Yeah.
us, right? And it is because our brain is negatively biased based on evolution. So we do tend to scan our environment and look at the problems because we have been conditioned over generations to be in, or thousands of generations to be in a state of survival, right?
Well, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Uh-huh.
now in the way our world is equipped, we aren't running from the saber-toothed tiger. We do
Right.
have in the grocery store, right? Like we don't need to be in such a survival state, but our body, our brain has been conditioned. So it lives more in a negative biasness where it will scan the environment and look for problems or look for like what's not right in our lives. And
Oh,
so
my
part of the work, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
part of the work in life is we have to train our brain to see the good. We have to train our brain to see the safety. We have to train our brain to see the love, the connection. We have to train our brain to see the abundance. We have to train our brain to see um, everything that is of great value that resonates at a higher frequency of again those positive renewal emotions, right? And so when we do that, we're actually creating, it's just, then that's how meditation helps. We're creating a new muscle in our brain that is being organized in order to scan our environment and see the good, to see the positive, to see the love, to see the connection, right?
Right.
Have you ever been in a situation where I use this one with my patients a lot? Like you go into the grocery store and someone holds the door for you and you just kind of, oh gee, thanks, have a great day, and you gloss over it, and then you go into aisle two and someone's a total jerk, and then that's the story you go home and you tell your partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
it. That's negative biasness. We get too focused on the
Totally.
negative and not, and so part of even, when we're talking about meditation and time in, but attending to ourselves is also about like when I have an experience of kindness or generosity, part of training our brain to be more in that dominant state is actually whenever that happens, we have to stop and take a moment and we have to let that feeling melt into our body. And that's where the affirmations and those experiences with the emotions, that's how it becomes powerful and then it starts to work in our lives, right?
Interesting. So when somebody opens a door, taking a moment and absorbing, if you will, that feeling of appreciation, that feeling of wow, that was what a nice person that was,
Yeah.
and then and the brain's bias towards negativity based on our survival instinct. That's amazing. I mean that to me that explains a lot, right?
Yeah.
And explains a lot about for me who I am, but for all of us who we are. One of the things that you also talk about is self-love and
Yeah.
the importance of self-love, and I'd like to, maybe we can end on that
Mhm.
and just talk about the importance of self-love, and you may have this whole thing might have been about self-love, but
Yeah.
but uh, what exactly does that mean? Because one of my favorite. This is going to sound really corny, but I'm going to say it anyway. One of my favorite songs of all time is Whitney Houston's "Greatest Love of All."
Mhm.
Learning to love yourself. It is the greatest love of all. And so, can you talk about that importance?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that a lot of us growing up, we did not learn how to love ourselves,
Right.
right? Um, and so learning to love ourselves is really walking through life and saying things like, is that thought kind and loving to me? Is that situation kind and loving to me? Is this environment kind and loving to me? And being able, and that's where tapping into the heart, because again, the heart knows, but the brain thinks. And if we're thinking through the brain will be like, well, if I don't do that, I'm going to hurt someone's feelings and I'm not allowed to hurt other people's feelings. And it's really important. And I'm selfish and blah, blah, blah. But if you put your attention on your heart will be like, you know what, that's not kind and loving to you. And now you can start making decisions based on that experience, right? and understand with it. And we have to flip the script. Like if I, again, make decisions for myself that are kind and loving and serve me, I have more to give to others.
Right. That's amazing. That's amazing. You, you know, you have you say so through this whole conversation. You've said certain things, and what you just said that just kind of triggered me a little bit was flipping the script.
Yeah.
Flipping the script. I mean, it seems like a big part of this conversation has been about flipping the script,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And yeah, and wow, wow. Um, if there's one thing that folks can do that would help them, and you've talked about a number of them, but what is one thing people can do as they work on flipping the script and creating that muscle?
It's about really committing and understanding the value of taking time for yourself in a way, time in, like through meditation, through quietness, through stillness. And when you're taking that time for yourself, because that time in, that self care isn't about going, this is a different kind of self-care. It's not about eating healthy and going to the
Right.
going to exercise, right? Like you need to do all those things. Those are important, but people think when they do that they're doing all their self-care, but they're really not. The self-care has to come with, I want to spend time with me. I want to sit down. I want to shut out the external world. I need to learn to just be in a state of connectedness within. And when I do that, and there's so much research on the meditation now, the mindfulness-based stress reduction, they show that if you take 15 minutes a day for 6 weeks straight, you reduce anxiety and depression by 50%.
Say that again.
Yeah, that's mindfulness-based stress reduction. The research has been out forever. UCLA has a website that's just dedicated to that research, that if we take 15 minutes a day, that's again having that formal practice for 6 weeks straight, it reduces anxiety and depression by 50%. And that's been reproduced at like the University of Miami, University of San Francisco, MIT is all over that stuff. Like I went to a seminar in 2017 up at UCLA and MIT was presenting about that as well. So, um, that's the greatest gift you can give yourself. And that is an act of self-love to say, I want to take the time for me to connect with myself, to connect to my heart brain, to connect to that heart intelligence so that as I'm going through my day and I'm making decisions for myself and others, I know it's coming from the highest version of me that day, right?
Yeah, that is amazing.
And then when it comes to our thoughts, when we start to learn that process, if I have a thought that's critical, self-loathing, and we all have them, I'm
Sure.
able to catch that thought and say, you know what, that's not kind and loving to me. I'm not going to put that attention on it because every time I put attention on that critical thought, it's going to grow more thoughts. It's going to create a negative
Right,
pharmacology in
right. A
my
whole
body.
stream
And
of,
guess
yeah.
what? And when I go home to take care of my kids, I'm going to be irritable and I'm not going to be the best mother I want to be, right? So that's why when we take that time in, it is not only an act of love towards ourselves, but it's truly an act of love towards others.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not going to I'm not putting you on a spot per se, but I do want to ask the question because you have, oh my gosh, this has just been, this is the, anyway, this has been amazing. This has been amazing. Um, if people are interested in learning more about you and perhaps working with you, do they have to live in San Diego County? I mean, do you work with people remotely?
Yeah, yeah. I
Do you
have to
really?
work, I have to work with people within the state of California because of my license, but
Okay.
yeah, I have people in Ventura and LA and yeah, and
Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
But this has been wonderful because you've also given us places where we can go to get more information and to
Yeah.
learn more. And this has been to flip the script, um, spend more time with yourself. I mean, these are things that
No, make yourself a priority. Like
make yourself a priority.
yeah, no, put your time in like as number one, and then everything else falls in line.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
But
Uh,
I will say that like a good, as you're talking about resources, like Heart Math has a great resource. Dr. Joe Dispenza, he has all this research on his work now that's being supported at UCLA and I mean at UCSD. And there's another book, Hardwiring Happiness. I can't remember the last name of the author, but he's really great. He's the one that's about like if we have a positive experience, stop for a minute and let it melt inside of ourselves so that we can start to create that neural map to make that our dominant reality, right?
yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. And you have to work at it. And I realize why you have to work at it is because we are naturally predisposed to survive
Yeah.
and look for the negative stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, listen, this has been amazing, Dr. Jen. Thank you so much
Thank you for having
for
me.
joining me. This has been wonderful. And folks, on johnsuzuki.com, I have a new resources tab. And the folks that Dr. Jen just talked about and the book that she just referred to, I will have on that resources so that you can take a look and look that stuff up yourself and heart math and so forth. Because uh, this is mind blowing. I mean, this is life changing stuff.
Mhm.
And I know for myself, I've learned more from this conversation than I have in any 45-minute conversation in my life.
Good.
So thank you, thank you, thank you,
You're
thank you so
welcome.
much. This is all about
Yeah.
finding better, folks. Dr. Jen just opened up the floodgates of opportunity for us, and
Yeah.
thank you, thank you.
You're
Do you have anything else you want to add before we close?
No, I will say that everything I've shared today is proven in science. So
Proven in
you
science.
can trust that it works. If you take the
Yeah.
time to do it, it works.
And if you don't believe it, then we're giving you resources to go look it up.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
with that, Dr. Jen, thank you. Thank you. Oh
Welcome.
my gosh. I love you. God bless you. Thank you for joining me. All of you out there, rewind this tape. You've heard me say tape. That just tells you how old I am.
Yeah.
I just age myself, right?
I knew what you were talking about.
Yeah. Rewind this or not, God, go back over and over and over this thing, maybe
Yeah.
a half dozen times because I'll tell you, I'm going to. And I know that every time I listen to it again, I'm going to learn something new. So thank you for share this. Share this with someone you love. Share this with a friend or a family. And it's all about helping the world, helping people because when you lift others, you lift the world.
Yep.
So with that, I love you. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. Subscribe, share. We'll see you next time. Okay, bye.